Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review comes from 1966, and it's Modesty, Blaise, directed by Joseph Losey. And this has almost become the unofficial Joseph Losey channel. He has become one of my favourite directors, even though I don't think he's necessarily a great director. He's made lots of very good films. I'm not sure he's made any great films that I've seen. Granted, The Go-Between and The Servant and Mr. Klein are all excellent. He is a fascinating character that one day I probably will do a series on, because he is kind of a cinematic nomad, from being blacklisted in the States to making films in Britain under a pseudonym to making films on the continent, and his filmography is kind of all over the map, and that's maybe why, you know, people like us are interested in a director's through lines, a director's common obsessions that go through his filmography or her filmography, and Lossey is a bit all over the map. And this is a perfect example. A colourful, vivid satire of the Harry Palmer, Bond films. Obviously, later on, James Coburn would be in Our Man Flint kind of films that are the same kind of satires. Obviously, I've done a video on Claude Chabrol's Blue Panther from 1965, which again is in the same vein of just vivid, wacky, bizarre spy spoofs or satires. But when you consider the film before Modesty, Blaise was King and Country, which I recently did a random review of on the channel as well, which is a very sombre, beautiful black and white World War One, lovely and depressing film. And then he does Modesty, Blaise, and then the film after Modesty, Blaise was Accident, which is a kind of another dark, depressing chamber piece. All three of these films with Dirk Bogarde. He did, I think, 5 collaborations with Dirk Bogarde. So this stars Monica Vitti in the title role of Modesty, Blaise, which was a comic strip in the UK, and this was kind of the plan to make Monica Vitti a superstar, not just a kind of Italian art house icon. And you could argue, as kind of effervescent and ephemeral as she is in the film, the actual character maybe requires somebody who's a bit more robust. I mean, the film at the end is set up for sequels that never actually happened, and there's actually only one scene in the artwork there, in the picture there, that is actually what Modest the character was kind of most resembles the comic strip, whereas Monica Vitti spends most of the time blonde and out of various outfits. I mean, Monica Vitti is, like I say, she's wonderful in the film, but I think the character maybe should have been a bit more robust and physical, more along the lines of the Emma Peel character in the Avengers. And then who knows, they might have actually had more than one film. And like I say, it co-stars Dirk Bogarde as the villain. He says himself, "I'm the villain of the piece." But this is a film very much like Blue Panther by Chabrol of the 60s. The production design by Richard McDonald is just ridiculous. Dirk Bogarde's character, Gabriel, who's supposed to have been dead for 2 years, he lives in this castle that's just art decor mad. It looks very much like The Village and The Prisoner, as far as the decor and the floors and the rooms. I mean, he's got a prison cell that is just eye-poppingly, it's one of those perspective wallpaper tricks on your eye. The film just looks amazing. Does it work completely? No. But there's enough going on in it. You could argue there's too much going on in it. But I'm certainly odd, and I would prefer to watch Modesty, Blaise or Blue Panther than a Bond film, but that's just me. So the basic premise, even though the plot is not really that important, to be honest, it's about a potential diamond heist. The British government sending diamonds to Beirut to pay for oil, basically. Obviously none of that happens nowadays. And Modesty Blaise is employed by the British government to protect the diamonds from Gabriel. Terence Stamp also appears in his 60s, looking gorgeous movie icon Terence Stamp, as her sidekick. They even have a song together about whether they should have sex or not. You have to watch this film in the right mood. If you're not in the right mood, I wouldn't be surprised if you just absolutely hated it. But if you kind of go with it, there's enough little details and oddness and strangeness about the film that really make it work. Harry Andrews is there, obviously, as the employee of the government and his usual stoic self, even though everybody's kind of playing it with a little gleam in their eye. Especially Bogarde is just having an absolute ball. And again, the production design and art in his world is just ridiculous. He has larger and larger glasses to drink out of. At one point he's drinking out of a mug that's almost bigger than his head. There's all little strange conversations. There's conversations about whether lobsters feel pain. The pilots who are in this jet plane, who are transporting the diamonds, have a conversation about whether they ski. That just seems to be a random conversation, and it's just like full of these little bizarre things. Lossey does use his camera well, as he tends to do in all of his films. He does POV shots through glasses of alcohol. He has a nice POV shot of a spike torture device. There are really interesting deaths in the film, even though it's all obviously played lightly, even though there's some brutality in it. It's just a very strange film. It was shot in Sicily, in Naples, in Amsterdam, in London, in Shepperton Studios. It was a troubled production, and again you can kind of tell it is a little bit of a mess. Clive Revill turns up as both an Arab and a Scotsman who is in charge of Dirk Bogarde's accounting, because obviously all Scottish people are penny pinching, even though if you look at my shelves behind me you wouldn't really see that. There's like, again, little details of, there's an apartment where Modesty goes to meet one of her connections, and there's like dolls of the characters in the film. There's a doll of her and a doll of Willie Garvin, Terence Stamp's character. She picks up or moves a cushion, and there's a comic strip of Modesty Blaise. You know, it's all very self-aware and meta, as we would call it nowadays. So it's completely aware of the universe it's in. I mean, also this is 1966, so it's not that far after Bond. And again, it's very much like a Bond film. It's a bit bloated, it's a bit overlong, but in general, there's lots of fun to be had if you're in the right mood. If you're a fan of Dirk Bogarde, it's an essential performance, because again, he is just having a whale of a time. But again, he's still believable as this criminal mastermind. He doesn't go completely overboard, even though he's certainly got one leg overboard. This is a Kino Lorber Region A Blu-ray release, and again, as with all Kino Lorbers, it can be hit or miss with the extras, but this one has an interview with the first assistant director, Gavrik Lossey, Joe Lossey's son. And again, he has appeared on indicator releases of Lossey films and Studio Canal. And obviously, Joseph Losey was his dad, so he is overly kind of effusive about the work that his dad did, which is absolutely fair enough. But sometimes he perhaps does go a little bit overboard with the kind of Joseph Losey did things that nobody else ever did. But I mean, you can't fault the guy, it was his dad after all. But he kind of gives a good insight into the production and how the relationship in England and America is kind of different as far as the role of the AD, which is pretty interesting. And then there's interviews with the screenwriter Evan Jones and assistant AD Norman Dormy. There's a commentary by David Duval, who's always good, and filmmaker Armand Mastriani, which I haven't listened to yet, but again, I'll probably will, because it's another film where you kind of have to rewatch it again, because there's so many little details, because really the details in the film are what make it really enjoyable, rather than the overarching plot, because the overarching plot doesn't really matter, to be honest. And there's just some stills from the production and a trailer. So it's a really enjoyable, daft 60s spy spoof satire with wonderful tongue-in-cheek performances. Personally, I probably prefer Chabraw's Blue Panther, because that's even a little bit more demented. But they both have a lot in common with each other. And again, it's just another fascinating chapter in Losey's very strange journey of a career, which, like I say, I think I might dive into more detail and actually do a series at some point, because I have seen a fair few of his films. I still need to see more. But again, to do that and then do that is certainly pretty fascinating. So thanks very much for watching this random review of Modesty Blaise, which does have a wonderful theme song, as most 60s films seem to do. And please let me know if you've seen Modesty Blaise and what you think of it, and where it ranks in your favourite Joseph Losey films. And hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell